Good morning. Is that better? I am Molly Brinkerhoff, today's worship associate. Welcome to you, old friends and new friends, young and old, on this cold February 3rd Sunday. And it's snowing. It's snowing. Welcome to those in the sanctuary and those who are here virtually with us. You are an essential part of our gathering today. We are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved, just as you are. You are welcome here. So, before we get started, there are a few announcements. Please silence your phones, which I need to do myself, because it is disturbing when your phone chimes while during the service. If you are watching us virtually, if you are able, please be sure to sign in on the chat box so we know who is here with us today. We will be having joys, sorrows, and concerns today, and if you are here in the sanctuary, be sure to get a little form from our greeter and write down your concern. Let us know that whether it's a concern, a sorrow, or a joy. If you're out there in virtual land, please be sure to write it in the chat box so that we can light a candle for you. Remember, next Sunday is our second Sunday potluck. Speaking of food, coffee hour, we need coffee hour hosts. If we don't have them, we will probably stop doing coffee hour. We need to have everybody step up and take a turn. It gets to be pretty overwhelming if the same person has to do it all the time. So here is the sign-up sheet. And Cindy, will you have that downstairs? Okay. So I'll leave it right here for now if anybody wants to sign up right after church. There will be a men's group next Friday. Will be here. It's a no host. It'll be here at 5:30. Does everybody just bring some food to share?
Respond to me with what they're going to bring for food.
Okay, so respond. If you have any questions, talk to Jim Sathi and let him know what you're planning to bring. Any other announcements? Okay, we will start our service with our prelude. Oh, sorry. Forgot to do one thing. Forgot to ring the peace bowl. So, settle yourself, relax, take several deep breaths as I ring this peace bowl 3 times. Our covenant, along with our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles, is our guide to how our congregation will relate to each other and the world. As I read our church covenant for us all, please recite it with me. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We will now be lighting our chalice. For those of you at home, if you have a candle or chalice available at home, please light yours with us. Our chalice lighting is by Mark Causey. We light this chalice, spark of the original fire of creation, to remind us that we are all on this planet, the furred, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled. Along with us, featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same star stuff and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing, being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as best we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are inextricably intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent. And it is good.
Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is the poem I Am Imbolc, The Dream of Awakening by Carolyn Maylor. I am the dream of awakening. I am the returning of the light. I am the tough green shoot pushing up through the paved stones. I am the first kiss of sunlight on the unfurling petals of snowdrop. I am the wind which whispers the gentle pull of home to the migratory bird. I am the drop of ice melting on the mountainside with its great dream of the ocean. I am the sap rising in the blossom tree just before it reveals its sticky buds to the sky. I am the riotous celebration humming away beneath the earth's mantle of frozen sleep. I am the rousing of the bee from its winter slumber and the soft pad of the mother wolf's paw in the snow as she prepares to birth her pups. I am hope, potential, rebirth, and promise. I am the kindling breath which transforms the flicker of inspiration in your creative core into a blazing torch. Give me the silent crescent moon rising over the sea, and I will build you a bridge of silver light so you can walk up and lie in it. Give me the frost-hardened wilderness, and I will breathe radiant green life over it. Give me the healer, the writer, the craftsperson, and the storyteller, and I will replenish her essence and make her new again. I am Brigid, Bast, Inanna, and Hestia. I am the fierce protectress of the sacred fire. Tonight I bestow my gifts of power and courage at the hearth of your soul. Power to step out of the shadows of self-doubt and negativity which have held you in darkness for too long. Power to shed all of that which no longer serves you. And courage to clear your heart and mind for the dawn that awakens you. I am the time to honor your unique gifts for their true worth, and to protect and nurture your creative self as you would a child. I am the deep longing of the spirit which refuses to be consumed by a narrative of fear and chooses instead to place itself vivaciously on the side of love. I am the stirring in your belly which knows exactly what you are capable of, and that it's time the world found out. I am the fire within which will not be contained any longer. I am the quickening. I am the serpent uncoiling. I am Imbolc, I am the dream of awakening. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken.
Got it. Okay, today's story is Elmer and the Snake. And this is by David McKee. We like Elmer. Elmer, the patchwork elephant, was thinking. He was thinking that it was a nice day for doing nothing. There nearby were two other elephants. "Look," whispered one. "Elmer is thinking up a trick to play on us. Let's play a trick on him instead." "What shall we do?" called the other elephant. "I don't know. I can never think of tricks. But Snake will know." Off they went to see the snake. "Hello, Snake," they said. "We want to play a trick on Elmer. What can we do?" Snake thought, then chuckled. "Tell him he's looking pale. Get him to lie down and rest." "He'll see that that's not true," said one of the elephants. Snake snickered. "If it's repeated often enough, he'll believe it. You'll see." The elephants weren't convinced, but they agreed to try Snake's idea because they didn't have any other. On the way home, they asked the other animals to help them fool Elmer. So we have a bunch here. Meanwhile, Snake snuck off and told Elmer the idea. "Do as they say, Elmer. Lie down where you usually do," he said. "I'll bring some white mud from the pool and rub you with it. It will make you look pale. They want to trick you, but we'll trick them." "All right, Snake," said Elmer. "I feel like lying down and doing nothing. I'll have a walk first." Who's tricking who, huh? Soon after, Elmer met a leopard who said, "Are you feeling all right, Elmer? You look pale." "Do I?" Elmer said. "Oh, dear." Then every animal that Elmer met said, "Are you feeling all right, Elmer? You look pale." And Elmer said, "Do I? Oh, dear." While Elmer returned to the other elephants, Snake was busy dragging a very large leaf towards Elmer's favorite lying down place. On the leaf was a pile of white mud. Tricky. Here comes Elmer, the elephants whispered to each other. Then out loud they said, "Are you feeling all right, Elmer? You look pale. You should lie down and rest." Elmer just nodded and went to his usual place. "It's working," chuckled the elephants. Snake was ready, and using a smaller leaf, covered Elmer with a thin coat of mud. Elmer giggled. "Stop, they'll notice," said Snake, then finished and hid. Elmer was left with his colors looking paler under the thin coat of mud. Tricky. "I'll go back and peek at Elmer," said an elephant. Elmer was asleep. Being covered with mud is relaxing, especially when you feel like doing nothing. The elephant returned to the others. "He's very quiet," he said, "and he really does look pale." Yep, let's see. The elephant laughed. One said, "Snake said that if we told Elmer often enough, he'd believe it. Now you're believing it too. Go look again." While they were talking, Snake gently covered Elmer with more mud. Elmer slept on. He's getting really pale now. The elephant found Elmer paler than ever and hurried over to get the others. Snake covered Elmer yet again, then hid as the elephants arrived. "He's getting paler all the time," said the first elephant. "What shall we do?" "We'll have to ask the snake," said another. Snake heard and hurried home. When the elephants arrived, Snake was waiting. He acted surprised. "Believing you are ill can make you ill," he said. "The way to cure Elmer is to tickle him." At first the elephants were shocked, but Snake convinced them, and they hurried away to try the cure. Elmer awoke feeling strange. The mud had dried, making a stiff cover all over him. At the same time, the elephants tiptoed up and started to tickle him. Elmer laughed and jumped up, bursting out of his mud shell like a chick breaking out of an egg. His colors showed as brightly as ever. "Hurrah!" shouted the elephants. "It worked! Snake was right!" Elmer laughed. "Snake? He's a crafty one. You thought you were tricking me. I thought I was tricking you, and Snake tricked all of us." But Snake was being sensible. They said, "Oh, it's Snake we should tickle." But Snake, being sensible, had gone on vacation. So the elephants tickled each other and anyone else that was around until the jungle rocked with the sound of laughter. The end.
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this moment to reflect on our joys, sorrows, and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. I will now read the joys, concerns, and sorrows we received, and Reverend Kevin will light a candle for each. And I'm going to light a candle because my son is calling me now, but I can't answer it. So for my family, I'm lighting a candle. I have on here one from the virtual world from Anita Carpenter. This is a concern. For today, after 3 long months of waiting, she's finally having cancer surgery this Thursday. Please keep her in your thoughts and prayers for a positive outcome. We love you, Anita. We hope it all goes well. From Karen Schaefer, it is a joy. Karen and Bob were able to travel to Anchorage to visit their son Warren and enjoy some winter cross-country skiing fun. Another from Karen Schaefer, a joy and a concern. Layla Chambers and husband Rick were able to join family in Florida for his father's recent memorial service. So our heart goes out to Layla's. Another from Karen, a concern. Amy has COVID, yet seems to be doing fairly well after returning home from visiting family. From Rosie, we have a joy. Nick and Will are here for the first time. Let's welcome them. Welcome. Are there any others that you can see, Vic? Okay. So we light one more candle to remember those who have spoken, those they have named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts.
Our reading this morning is from the book Walking the Mist, Celtic Spirituality for the 21st Century by Donald McKinney. Celtic spirituality requires us to act as if we are walking in a mist, the accepted 5 senses not being sufficient for us to understand the world in which we actually live. The Celts believed that what we can see and hear is but a small part of the world that surrounds us, that there is a whole spiritual realm that we cannot explore with our physical senses. To understand Celtic spirituality, we must suspend the normal way of looking at the world and sense the other world around us. And that is not difficult. Celtic spirituality is a rather dull technical term for something fluid and alive. Anyone can stand in nature and feel the power of the land, can understand the magic of a sacred well or spring. We can all marvel at the beauty of birds in flight or a flower in bloom, and be certain of the presence of the Spirit. Indeed, if you know anything of Native American spirituality, of Australian Aboriginal teachings, or those of any other indigenous people, then you will recognize many of the ideas. This should not be surprising. After all, we all live in the same world. And Celtic spirituality merely reflects our own history and culture in the words we use, the images we cultivate, the ceremonies we create, and the practices we undertake. The fluidity of Celtic spirituality makes it hard to define. Celtic spirituality is not a religion. It is a set of beliefs and practices to help us become aware of the spiritual world around us and our place in it. Whether you find it suitable to work with Jesus, the apostles, and the Celtic saints, or Bridget, Manon MacLear, and the Celtic gods, it matters little. What matters is that your life is enriched. You are at peace with your inner self, and that you become aware of the magic and incredible world that surrounds us. An offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received. If you are tired of the cold weather and shoveling snow, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that this past Thursday on February 2nd, we crossed the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So astronomical winter will be over and spring will return in about 6 weeks, no matter what Punxsutawney Phil or any other prognosticating rodent says. The bad news is that unfortunately, here in the more northern latitudes, meteorological wintry conditions will likely last until at least sometime in April. In America, most people think of February 2nd as Groundhog Day, if they think about it at all. But the natural holiday of the solar year that lies between the winter solstice and the spring equinox has long been celebrated by different cultures around the world as one of the 8 milestones of the year. Among the ancient Celts, especially those in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man, it was an important holiday known as Imbolc, and it is still celebrated by contemporary Wiccans and other neo-pagans today. The name Imbolc refers to being in the belly and seems to be a reference to the time of year when sheep are pregnant with lambs, a symbol of the promise of new life. Imbolc actually begins on sundown February 1st and lasts through sundown on the 2nd. When Christianity came to the region in the early decades of the 5th century, the Celtic goddess Brigid, associated with Imbolc, was replaced by Saint Brigid, whose feast day is now celebrated on February 1st. One of the traditional ways of celebrating St. Brigid's Day is gathering rushes along riverbanks and weaving them into so-called St. Brigid's crosses, like the one you see beside me on the table. This practice is likely much older than Christianity, though, and the symbol is thought to be an ancient Celtic symbol for the sun. Though the historicity of St. Brigid is highly debatable, she is considered the female patron saint of Ireland. And beginning this year, St. Brigid's Day is now observed as a permanent national banking holiday in Ireland on the first Monday in February, the first Irish woman to be so honored. Last year I spoke about the St. Brigid story in more detail, and the reason that groundhogs and badgers became associated with Imbolc. But this year, I thought it would be good to focus on another important Imbolc critter we don't normally think about in this cold season: snakes. Imbolc is supposed to be a time for looking for the first stirrings of spring and the return of warmer weather and longer days. But here in Idaho, I wouldn't expect to see any green shoots poking up out of the frozen ground anytime soon. If you're anxiously awaiting the greening of the earth, you will have to be content with a promise and idea of spring, and perhaps take comfort in the creative spirituality of Imbolc. But even though the ground is still covered with snow and the temperatures are cold, maybe you can still feel something stirring in the world that hints of new life. The ancient Celts imagined this reawakening as the great serpent, the spirit of the earth moving beneath the soil. And though we don't know many details about their religious rituals, it is believed that one sign they looked for at this time of year was the first snakes emerging from their winter slumber. Spotting a snake was considered a lucky omen. It is easy to imagine how seeing snakes slither out of their underground burrows could be seen as the very soil coming back to life. Sacred messengers from the great serpent who dwells below, announcing that the time has come to emerge from the fallow slumber of winter and renew the cycle of life. These days, snakes are not so revered and largely suffer from a bad reputation, and that is really a shame. They creep many people out with their lack of legs and their slithery way they move. And of course, many snakes are very dangerous if they feel threatened and can inject us with poisonous venom. If you've ever had a close encounter with a venomous snake, as I have a few times, you will know the fear and adrenaline such an encounter can provoke. And ever since the serpent was added to the cast of the Adam and Eve story, ultimately getting humans thrown out of Eden, snakes have been seen as evil in the Western religious mind, even representing Satan himself. Even so, the temptation of Eve by the serpent has been a popular subject in medieval and Renaissance art, and even up to modern times. This probably says more about the dark, seductive quality of snakes and the lurid imagination of the artists. Snakes have developed a reputation as being among the bad boys of the animal kingdom. But snakes are beautiful and important members of the web of life. And some are very useful to us because they help control the populations of pests such as rats, mice, and insects. Nevertheless, some people just have a pathological fear of even the most harmless snakes. I grew up around a great uncle who never met a snake, poisonous or not, that he didn't kill, usually with a shotgun, but sometimes with a hoe, despite being a farmer who benefited from their pest control nature. Fortunately, I did not inherit his complete disdain for snakes. Once on a hike in June along the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee, Marty and I even slept peacefully very close to a large, friendly black snake in one of the lean-to shelters on the trail. It was one time that we didn't worry about the mice that commonly inhabit trail shelters scurrying around us all night. In the morning, both we and the snake moved along our way. I have not yet met any of the 12 species of snakes that live in Idaho, but I understand that only 2 are poisonous, the western rattlesnake and the much less common prairie rattlesnake. Idaho doesn't have any of the silent poisonous snakes like copperheads and coral snakes. Rattlesnakes were even considered friendly by many Native Americans because they warned us of their presence, unlike the others, the ones I came close to stepping on and putting my hand on. Snakes have been spiritually important for many cultures, including the Celts, and they have been represented in religious art from the tiniest charms to the great serpent mound in Ohio, which is an over 1,300-foot long, 3-foot high earthen effigy of a snake. It is the largest snake effigy in the world, and recent archaeology suggests it is at least 2,000 years old. We don't know much about the people who built the serpent mound, other than that they were ancient Native Americans and appeared to have understood how to construct a solar calendar, and they venerated the snake in some way. We know much more about the Celts, who were a collection of tribes with similar languages, traditions, and religious beliefs that emerged around 1200 BCE in Eastern Europe and eventually spread out across most of Western Europe, including the British Isles and the Iberian Peninsula. The ancient Celts left no written accounts of their other than examples of what is called Ogham script, which is carved into stones. But we do have a tremendous variety of artifacts that reveal something about their religion, and there is a long oral tradition that was eventually recorded in later centuries. We also have accounts of Celtic mythology from Roman historians, such as Pliny the Elder, though we should always be wary of accounts written by outsiders, especially those like the Romans who viewed all non-Romans as inferior barbarians. There's a similar problem with the tales of Celtic mythology recorded by medieval Christian monks, despite their own Celtic ancestry, because we must consider that they were written from a biased Christian perspective. Like all ancient peoples, nature was the Celts' first source of spiritual inspiration, as they wrestled as we do with the big questions of human existence. They looked around at the animals and the plants, the earth, the skies, and the seas, and felt their inherent connection to a living world. They did not see a firm boundary between the physical world of the senses and the spirit world, which they imagined to be filled with gods and goddesses and other magical creatures, many associated with the powerful forces of nature in whom all life dwells. They carefully observed the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the changing seasons, for they learned their very lives could depend on this knowledge. It was important to know the right time of year to hunt and forage, and later to plant and harvest crops. From this natural spirituality, the first religious holidays emerged, celebrating the important milestones of the Earth-Sun relationship. In Celtic religions and in many other cultures, snakes were a symbol of healing, fertility, transformation, and wisdom. They are frequently featured in the spiritual iconography on Celtic artifacts, especially those found in continental Europe. They are often depicted as the companions or familiars of the great goddess and the antlered Celtic god Cernunnos. On the famous Gundestrup cauldron discovered in Denmark, for example, Cernunnos is depicted seated with a snake in one hand. The way snakes shed their skin has made them an obvious symbol for the turning of the year and transformation. And the way they first appear old and pale during the process, before they emerge from the old skin shiny and new, is why they have been associated with healing. I find it fascinating, but not very surprising, that a culture as different in time and place as the Hopi peoples of the American Southwest had very similar beliefs about the symbolic significance of snakes. Some aspects of this spiritual symbolism are easy to understand by way of observation, but other common symbolic associations are a bit more mysterious. Snakes seem to touch something deep and archetypal in the human psyche. For the Celts, snakes likely played some role in many religious and healing rituals throughout the year. And as I already mentioned, they have a special significance associated with Imbolc as a symbol of fertility and the reawakening of the earth. Snakes are still celebrated in folk rituals in Celtic lands, but it is worth noting that although snakes are widespread in mainland Britain, Ireland is one of the few places on earth where there are no native snakes. According to legend, St. Patrick was attacked by a pack of snakes, evidently intent on preventing his missionary work, and in retaliation, he miraculously drove all the snakes out of Ireland. In reality, the absence of snakes is more likely due to the fact that Ireland is an island, and it was completely covered in ice during the most recent ice age. If snakes once lived in the Emerald Isle, they never made it back when the climate warmed. Even sea snakes avoid the cold coastal waters around Ireland, preferring much warmer conditions. But despite the lack of snakes, one Irish St. Bridget's Day custom of unknown origin involves filling stockings with peat to create an effigy of a snake and then ceremonially bashing in its head with a rock. This is probably a folk ritual to commemorate the St. Patrick story, of course, though a few sources suspect that it may have deeper roots as a metaphorical killing of the venom of winter. If the former, I'm sure the ancient Celts would be appalled at this symbolic bashing of snakes. Some people also suggest that the story of St. Patrick driving the snakes out of Ireland is a metaphor for ridding the island of Druids and other pagans who were associated with snakes because of their pagan Celtic religion. But this is probably a reinterpretation of the folk tale from a contemporary pagan perspective. It seems to have no ancient roots, and in fact, the real Christian missionary, known now as St. Patrick, did not successfully eliminate paganism in Ireland at all. To be fair, there are some examples of serpents being negatively portrayed in Celtic mythology, usually as mythical beasts guarding some treasure or magical place, but such tales usually feature dragons rather than ordinary snakes. Snakes have mostly been held in high esteem and associated with wisdom, including sacred wisdom that is hidden from ordinary experience. Even in Christian times, some saints were said to be as wise as serpents. So maybe we too can free ourselves from anti-snake prejudice and learn to appreciate snakes for their natural beauty and importance in the web of life, even as sacred creatures that can grant us wisdom and enrich our lives beyond our normal senses and knowledge, if only in a metaphorical sense. Opening ourselves to the wisdom that our fellow creatures can offer demands a stepping away from human arrogance that we are somehow something apart from nature. But instead of losing something by doing so, we gain a deeper understanding of our relationship with the whole web of life as a living network of mutuality, snakes included. In the spirit of Imbolc, as we sit here on the frosty Snake River plain, just a stone's throw from the mighty Snake River herself, or wherever you're joining us from virtually, take a moment to imagine the great serpent spirit of the earth, deep underground, beginning to stretch and move. Recall the warm spring days from years past, and imagine the days getting longer and warmer, the first plants poking up through the soil, the first buds appearing on the tips of tree branches, and then many animals crawling out of their dens and burrows. In gratitude for our place within the web of life and the life-giving power of the sun, let us also begin to reawaken to the promise of another year. Blessed be. I invite you to rise in body or spirit once again and join in singing our closing hymn, number 27, I Am That Great and Fiery Force. Our closing words are the poem The Cold by Wendell Berry. How exactly good it is to know myself in the solitude of winter, my body containing its own warmth, divided from all by the cold, and to go separate and sure among the trees cleanly divided, thinking of you, perfect too in your solitude, your life withdrawn into your own keeping. To be clear, poised, in perfect self-suspension toward you as though frozen. And having known fully the goodness of that, it will be good also to melt.
We will now extinguish our chalice with the following words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And please join us downstairs for refreshments.